I'm Jen.
And I'm Dora, and we are two yogis talking about life.
So we're so happy just to have Jennifer Cabanero with us. Beginning in 2003, she trained extensively with Dr. Richard Miller in the art and craft of iRest Yoga Nidra. She's a senior iRest teacher trainer and an iRest certification mentor. Jennifer teaches iRest series classes, immersions, workshops, and retreats to the Yoga Tree in Seattle. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with both of you.
Well, we're so happy that you're here to talk a little bit about your iRest journey with us. And so we'd love for you to share a little bit about what brought you to iRest or yoga or both.
Great. I love talking about this because it's just transformed my life. And to start, I've been teaching yoga for, 25, 30 years now. And it was almost 20 years ago that I was first introduced to iRest. And this was before it was actually called iRest. I was I think it was a 5-day workshop with Donna Farhi in Seattle. And the first day she said, we're going to do this thing called Yoga Nidra. Everybody lay down. And so we did the practice, and I immediately fell asleep. And I woke up going, something feels a little bit different. And so the next day, same thing again. All right, everyone, get ready to do Yoga Nidra, lay down. And same thing. I fell completely asleep. I don't remember a thing. But when I woke up from the practice, I felt very different. Like the level of anxiety was remarkably diminished for me. And so the next day when we were doing it, I said, Donna, I fall asleep every time. What can I do? And she said, you can fall asleep if you want to, or you can, as you're laying on your back, you can bend your elbow and let your forearm be vertical. And when your arm falls, that will wake you up and kind of bring you back to the practice. And so I did that. And probably the first maybe 10 minutes of probably a 30 or 40-minute practice she was doing, I became scared. And I was like, I have to be present. I don't know if I like this. But I stuck with it, and I did the practice, and I was able to really go through the practice because I was more awake. And it was really profound. And so when I questioned her more, I wanted everything I could find about this because it was so changing how I just inhabited my body, that she said, you need to contact my friend Richard Miller. And that was it. That's when it started, close to 20 years ago. So it's just been a profound change to my life.
Oh my gosh, I love hearing all about that. Wow. It's always lovely to hear how everybody starts, and it's been such a journey. And we know that your interest recently, or not recently, but maybe more and more, relates to co-meditation dyad. So we're hoping that maybe you might explain that to the listeners and perhaps how it might be different from other forms of meditation.
Yeah. The co-meditation or dyad is essentially, it's kind of like a free form iRest practice. When let's say we're in a group iRest class, it's linear, even though what's unfolding in us isn't necessarily. But we're taken through in this journey through the koshas, or the layers of our humanness. And when we're sitting in the co-meditation dyad, it's more free form. So instead of taking a journey through the body, meeting the breath, we're just dropping into a meditation. And then as a facilitator, I'm asking them, what are you noticing now? And they might say, oh, I'm feeling hungry. And then I would have them tell me more. What is that like? What do you notice? What are the sensations of hunger? And then the meditation just continues in this way. As a facilitator, I'm simply holding this space for the participant to have their own experience. And as I'm holding this space, I also think of it as like a sacred mirror. I might say, oh, there's some sadness present. And I might say something like, does it feel okay to feel into this? And if they said yes, I'm like, all right, can you notice what sadness feels like in your body? And they might say something, oh, I feel heavy-hearted, or I feel teary. And we're just, as the facilitator, just helping them stay with the experience. And we're not trying to fix them or change them or come up with like anything that they should do. The idea here is we're just being with what is, like the truth of what's here right now. And through these practices, we know that when we take the time to meet or greet, say, a sensation in the body, an emotion that might be here, or a belief we might be holding about ourselves or the world, we're taking the time to feel them rather than thinking so much about them. It's a way to like metabolize or digest our experiences, and what can occur is insight or relief or just kindness to take the time to be with these guests. So it's a really special way of sitting with another. But what I like about it so much is that it also, even if, say, I'm the facilitator, as I'm learning how to sit with another and just be with them and listen, is how to be with myself. That kind of is what it comes back to again and again, is the more I'm able to be with what's happening in me in a kind, constructive way, or even deconstructive way, where I'm just allowing it to be here and just sensing. The more I'm able to be with mine, the more I'm able to be with what's presenting itself in others. So it's just a lovely practice for meeting ourselves and others. Yeah.
That's such beautifully explained, because I think oftentimes I have a hard time explaining what a co-meditation is. It sounds so simple, and yet it can be so profound. And just as a facilitator, holding space for someone to just be in their experience. And I think that a lot of us are trained to analyze all the things that come up. So we tend to be really cognitive. And so a lot of the times when there's an opportunity for someone holding space for you to feel something, as simple as it may sound, it's actually such a profound experience for so many people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a real, like, at least for myself, as I'm sitting as a facilitator with another, it's sitting here with the knowing that they have within them what they need to attend to this issue. So it's really like empowering, I think, for both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also different in some ways, in that I find a lot of students might come in from having experienced other modalities where maybe perhaps they've been more the facilitator directing the experience a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in iRest, we're really not the one that's directing the experience. We're really giving the person, like you say, it's to empower them to have their own experience. And that sometimes that dynamic can be quite new for someone, right? To understand that, oh, I have the answer. I get to be in the driver's seat. And there's also that tendency of them asking, oh, am I doing this right? Or how am I supposed to be doing it? And so would you like to maybe speak a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, very much so. And I find often, especially when I'm working with like a new client who are relatively new to this, they're often wondering, like, am I doing this right? And there's really no wrong. And if we're sitting there and they're just speaking from their experience, they might say, I'm concerned, I'm worried about, am I doing this right? And I would ask them, what is that like to wonder that? And then we're back in the body. Or it might be that like peace arises. And I'm asking them, what is it like to feel peaceful? What do you notice in your body? And we might spend 20, 30 minutes, we could even sit in silence as they're really feeling into whatever is here. Is that answering your question, Dora?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's so interesting how different people have different experiences, and then also as a facilitator, having, like you were saying, having our own experiences, our tendencies to wanting to fix or change something, and I really watch that in myself when I sit with another as well.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know about you, but I've been trained since I was a youngster to try to fix and change everyone around me. So it was really challenging when I first learned this. But and I often have, when I'm teaching this, say in the level 1 training, people say, hey, I'm not a therapist, I can't do this. And it's not about trying to help someone solve their problems. It really is sitting in meditation with someone. And you don't have to be a yoga teacher to be able to do it. It's just, essentially, it's like learning how to be a kind human. And what if I meet with my neighbor and she's having a really hard time and just needs someone to sit with her? And now I'm not doing like a formal dyad co-meditation session, but here I am able to sit with another who's having a challenging time and to really be with them.
Actually, that's a perfect timing that you brought in about how you bring it in personally, because that was sort of our next question that we wanted to ask. Because I do find, through that practice and, as we, learn more and more, especially attending Richard's different talks and how he always tries to integrate it with everyday life. I'm finding it very useful, especially as a school teacher, bringing it in with little children who might be dysregulated, and then noticing, that I might be dysregulated from it too, and then that feeling, like you said, with sitting with ourselves and then being able to sit with them. So I was hoping maybe you could speak to that, maybe how you work, maybe personal aspect, like outside of the yoga studio.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, iRest has really been life-changing for me because from a very young age, I struggled seriously with depression and with anxiety. That was just like my normal operating system. And it's through doing these practices over time, of like the linear, like group iRest practices, really, that I was able to learn, how to open into my inner resource, what do I do with the sensations? How do I meet my emotions and the beliefs I have about myself? And it's through all of the learning part of how to meet, like, what do I do with all this stuff, the deluge of stuff, that has really changed things. I remember in the very, very first iRest teacher training that Richard taught, I was in it, and I remember crying from relief when he was talking about the plasticity of the brain and how it can change, and that I wasn't necessarily doomed to be depressed and anxious for the rest of my life. And that really has been the case. I've learned really how to tap into this aspect of, myself that is whole and okay has never been harmed. And I remember, when Richard would teach about this inner resource, with practice, it would become unshakable. It would be here when we needed it. And I was always like, yeah, right, buddy. That's not my experience of life. But, I really loved the practice. And so I continued, and I was just blown away when that actually happened. I was in a retreat. At that time of my life, I was having really significant panic attacks. And I started having one in a retreat setting. And I remember feeling like, I hope I pass out because this is so awful. I don't want to feel it. And then immediately came a feeling of well-being. And it felt like there was a trapeze net underneath me where I was like teetering. And I actually started laughing out loud in a silent meditation with like 70 people, because I was just like, it's true. It's happening. So it's just doing these practices, life-changing for me. And I would also say, with my family, it's helped me navigate being like a long-term caregiver of my husband, who was living with cancer. I became kinder, I became calmer, was able to take things less personally, to be able to set healthy boundaries. And this practice is continues to resource me now as I'm grieving his death last December. So it's something I do every day. And it might be for a formal practice where I'm sitting and I might guide myself, or I might use a recording. But for myself, it's happening all day long. It's a meditation that's with me as I take my first sip of coffee in the morning, and I'm finding joy, or it's with me when I'm like frustrated about a project I'm working on. I'm like, okay, I'm meeting this. And what is this like? And how's my body responding to this? So it's a 24/7 practice these days for me.
Wow. I love hearing personal stories and how our different teachers have used iRest in their lives personally, as well as supporting those that are in need. You shared that you had anxiety and how iRest was able to really transform that experience for you. So for anyone who might also be having or do have anxiety or have panic attacks, what might be a good tip or a starting point for them?
Yeah, I think the starting point, which is also one of the starting points in the iRest practice, is the inner resource piece of the practice. And that might, if that's all you do of an iRest practice, I think that could be hands down one of the most helpful things. And it's really learning how to feel a sense of any kind of well-being, which is always on a continuum. It could be well-being is neutral on some days. It could be bliss on another day. It could be anywhere in between. And it might be that we start with feeling like using a memory of a time when we were really happy or joyful, or even just like a quiet moment of like watching a beautiful sunrise, and really tuning in, like, what does that feel like in the body? That's the most important part of it. If it's cognitive, when we need it sometimes will fall flat. But if it's something that it's a felt sense that we develop over time in the body, it can really be there. And for myself, I'd say it's here. It doesn't go away. And it's not like, this like woohoo well-being, but it is like this, like the felt sense of knowing that there's a net under me as I walk across the tightrope, kind of a feeling, and kind of neutral-ish, and sometimes, beautiful well-being. And over time, we less and less need like the memory or our imagination to bring it forward. It is just the felt sense of this aliveness of being percolating through every single cell.
Oh my gosh. I feel so lucky after listening to everything you're sharing, because we don't get to talk about that sometimes during our level trainings when we're assisting or working together. Um, so I was just thinking, because we're so lucky. We had Richard the other day, and we got to you all have such a wealth of life experience. And I'm just wondering, I mean, like perhaps what are you excited about now? Like since you've, 35 years, that's a long time. So I know there's co-meditation dyad, but is there, I don't know, is there another facet that's also interesting you?
I would say besides the dyad, it really the part of the practice where we're diving into what we call the asmita maya kosha, or the kosha of the ego or the I thought. And what I'm really excited about in my practice is really, as I'm sitting in meditation, just slowing down, and I'm able to watch the I thought come up instead of like coming up like I'm hungry, instead of just hunger is here, and it's really exciting to me to be able to sit and watch thoughts come up and not necessarily get caught and like pulled off with them, but just to observe them, to let them be there, know that this is their job. The mind is supposed to think about things. The thoughts aren't going to stop, but things slow down. And so it's a piece of the practice that I just love sort of basking in and just observing and also tuning in, like, what does it feel like to be resting? Kind of like I was thinking of like the still depths of a pond and all the thoughts kind of like the ripples of the wind on top of the pond, and just deep rest in the midst of cognition still happening. I don't know if that's like too out there for what you're wanting to know, but that's what really excites me.
Yeah, I find that as we continue with this journey, I mean, at the beginning, students might just be coming in for relaxation, or they might just be coming in because they have no sense of their body and they just need to learn how to even have a somatic experience. But as we continue with this, just more and more things open up for us, and like you're saying, that this is the most interesting thing. It gets more and more subtle, and you start to really ask the really juicy questions of who am I? And so I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, oh, sorry. I don't know if I interrupted. Yeah, so I would love to maybe ask another question here. As you've been using iRest for so long, and have this as your practice and integrate it into your life, have you noticed any your evolution on this journey and how you experience iRest now as opposed to when you had it at the beginning, and what's shifted and how it's evolved for you?
Yeah. One of the things that shifted is anxiety is pretty much gone. So that's huge for me. Another thing that shifted is like what felt like a chronic low-lying depression comes and goes still, but now there isn't fear about it. And they last for shorter durations, and there's longer spaces between them. And it really helps me to know, it's like, oh, this is just a guest I need to meet right now, see what needs to be tended to, rather than something to be afraid of. And so those are huge. How else have I seen? Well, I have to say in the beginning, I would always use a recording to do my practice. Now, if I'm doing like if I'm guiding myself, I take myself through the practice rather than listening to a recording. And I might be guiding myself through a 30-minute practice on my own, as we would do like a group practice going through each of the steps of iRest, or but better able to just be doing it in the moment while I'm walking, hiking, doing the dishes. It feels like it's there. And the other piece that I touched on too, with that there is like an okayness that's here, even in the midst of really hard times. When someone says, "How are you?" and I could be it, having a really hard time, and I could what comes out is, "I'm okay." Like, and I really am okay. Yes, there's all these things happening in my life, but there's an okayness here. That's just it's beautiful.
Just wanted to say, just it's I don't know why, but it's just always means a lot to hear the humanness, especially from our teachers who, senior teachers like yourself. uh, it's just inspiring because we all go through these ups and downs, and for some reason, um, it's nice to hear that everybody else does too, especially our senior teachers. So I'm so grateful for your sharing all of that.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm happy to.
So, where can people find you and so that they can learn more from you or to work with you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I Most of my classes right now are online through the Yoga Tree, which is a yoga studio in Seattle. I know there's many, many yoga trees all over the world. So it's the Yoga Tree in Seattle. And that's how I meet people. That's where I teach my classes. That's where, if I'm teaching like online group classes, then I have, if people want private work, then we can go that route too. But pretty much all my classes are through the Yoga Tree, and I'm starting up teaching again in January. I've got a 4-week series in January on what the heart wants, kind of like the New Year's, getting ready for the new year, and teaching another series in February on the body sensing aspect of Yoga Nidra. And that's kind of like a series that's going to be running throughout the whole year, like through the koshas or the layers that comprise um, the part of the steps of iRest Yoga Nidra. So looking forward to that. I'm teaching a level 1 in person in June, which is very exciting. And I've got another thing coming up, I think in March as well, like a weekend, in-person weekend uh, immersion. So all kinds of good stuff coming up.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing where we can find you. It's funny how you say about the yoga tree, because I also have a yoga tree here that we trained in. But yeah, we're just so grateful to be with you and for your
Oh,
time. So thank you so
oh,
much.
it's such a pleasure. It's so nice to be with you both.
So 6:33. Okay, so maybe outtakes now, Mark, if you're listening. So how was that for you?
It was fun.
Have
I
you been
like
on?
getting I like getting asked the questions because, some of them I've thought about, but others I haven't. So it's a lovely way to sort of refresh, my journey.
Yeah. Yeah, and we always love hearing stories and how our teachers got to where they are now. And so it's just been such a joy for us to be able to talk to each and every one of you, and for you to, so graciously spend some time with us and support us in this way. So we really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. And you're so organized, and you made it so easy.
Oh, good. That's good to hear. It's like mostly Jen. Jen is the organized one.
It's good to have those
Never
around.
show up.
I think we're a good team. I think we match very well. So have you been on a vodcast or podcast before?
Mm-mm.
It's such an interesting thing because I guess I figure, because when we listen to you, to all of the teachers, you speak so eloquently. I would think like naturally, of course, you've all been on millions of, you know, just like all the, other people who speak all the time. So and you're not the first person who said that they've never really been on one. So that's such an interesting thing. Would you go on more now that you've been on ours?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. This is a really nice introduction.
Yay. I'm glad to hear
Yay.
that, actually. I'm glad to hear that. Did anything else arise for you through this experience of being with us?
Hmm. Just how much I love talking about this. And I I haven't really been teaching this year since my husband died last December. And so it's just been, some teaching for iRest, but that's it, really. And so part of me is like, oh, get the gears moving again. Get the teaching gears going. And so it's interesting to me how the mind might feel like, oh, it's been such a long time. How's this gonna go? Kind of feeling to, oh, I really love talking about this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how we got started actually, because like Jen was saying, we met on iRest trainings, I think, or retreat, one or the other. And it's so funny because I met Jen when we were paired up for the sacred mirror exercise. And then after that, I'm like, oh, I just felt such a connection. I had to reach out to her. And then in another training or retreat, and I met Jessica Hagee, and I also did a sacred mirror exercise with her. And I just felt, oh my gosh, this bond. And then I had to reach out to her. And then Rachel was also, I met in one of the trainings, and she was someone that was in my area. So all of us kind of like then became a little group, and we had been meeting since 2019, like online, just a little study group, twice a month. Now we moved to monthly, but we were doing twice a month for a number of years, and then we decided to do certification together so that we all had, a little group where we can like share our experience and the text that we were reading. And then now that we're all certified, we just kind of kept going, and we're still meeting like every month. So it's been such a wonderful support for all of us. Yeah.
It sounds really rich to be able to share and hear reflections from all your peers. It's really beautiful.
And it's interesting because just saying, I'm connecting how, Jennifer, you talked about the sacred mirror in relation to co-meditation dyad. And it is funny how Dora and I met because I don't think we spoke much, right? During that sacred mirror. So it's an interesting thing, like you said, just holding space and then being able to feel this resonance with one another so that it drew us together. So it's like such a beautiful thing.
It's really sweet.
And I think you've made me more excited about, just using co-meditation diet, because I mean, I haven't had to practice it in terms of formally, but I do feel like I practice it more and more and more, like just naturally in everyday life. And I think with intention, I try to bring it in. So it's an interesting thing how that evolves, from this formal practice to using it with ourselves and with our loved
Mhm.
ones and with anybody else we encounter.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I like to let students know who've done like level 1 or level 2 is to practice the co-meditation dyads with themselves, like literally, with the script if necessary, and doing both parts, facilitator part and then participant part out loud, or instead writing it down. It's such a profound experience, and a way to meet ourselves, but also really like like practice the not trying to fix and change part. And I think it's harder with ourselves. For me, it's I notice so many residues of fixing and changing happening this direction rather than that direction. you
Yeah.
know really like getting subtler and subtler, but still there, this oh, there's something wrong with me.
It's interesting because I did a dyad with a client yesterday, and she was a client that, she's also a wellness coach herself. I'm not sure what her modality is, but she basically explained to me that, oh, I've been doing my own inner work for 30 years, and I've been so deep in it, and I do a lot of somatic stuff, and I know all of this. And when I did like a little discovery call with her, when I try to explain what iRest was, and in her mind she's like, yeah, I know, I know, I know, I know. And then so in a way I'm like noting myself, I'm like, okay, so why are you reaching out? Like that was a thought. But then I realized, no, she's reaching out because there are some things that, while we can do a lot for ourselves, it's such a amazing experience to not have to be directing it yourself, and to have someone else hold space so
Yeah.
that you can fully be in the experience. But then so we did the dyad yesterday, and it was a very different experience for me, like because she felt, even though she's supposed to be the one directing the experience, I felt like she really directed where she wanted to go. And every time I offered a suggestion, like she knew better, right? So she'd be like, yeah, no, I don't need to go there, or and it's fine, right? And then at the end of the session, she would ask me, she asked me, okay, what do I think of it, and what I think that might be the issue with her. And it was just a really interesting question because, like you're saying, we're not the one directing. Of course, I have my opinions as to what I thought went on there, but in the end, I'm like, I'm going with whatever the wisdom of your body is telling me in the moment. There's not a right or wrong way to do it, and my opinion doesn't really matter here. Right? It's more about what you experience. But she was really wanting to get what I thought about her experience, which was really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Hmm.
Unless there's something else, is there something? I mean, I could stay with you for a really long time, but but
I can't. Nothing else is like coming up. So
yeah, I really appreciate it. I love the directions that it goes, and it'll be in the spring. So we'll let you know when that
oh,
happens.
good, good. And it'll be nice to if you let me know, and then I can send it out to my friends and family too.
Yeah, definitely. We'll let you know when your episode airs so that you can share it. And we appreciate you sharing it, with anyone who might be interested in learning more about the iRest method, or just hearing different iRest teachers talk about their stories. Yeah, appreciate it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you
Be
so much,
well.
Jennifer.
Be
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.